The Galactic War Council chamber was a place where empires were born and worlds were destroyed by mere words. Its walls were carved from black crystal mined from dying suns, its ceiling covered in moving holograms of conquered galaxies, a reminder of the power gathered within. Every species in the galaxy sent their greatest generals, admirals, and strategists to sit at the long circular table that stretched across the hall like the ring of a star. On this day, however, the air inside the chamber was tense and filled with laughter, not of joy, but of arrogance. The topic of discussion was Earth. The humans again, hissed a scaled general from the Kethian Dominion, his voice low and amused. They think because they survived one skirmish with pirates, they're ready to stand among us. The room filled with mocking chuckles. Another, a sleek creature with golden eyes from the Cyrex Empire, leaned forward. Primitive world. Still fights with metal bullets. They think discipline can match technology. It's almost adorable. A dozen alien officers laughed harder. The scent of smugness filled the air. But not everyone was laughing. Near the far end of the table sat an older being with grey skin and deep-set eyes, Admiral Torvak, one of the few who had fought on the edge of human territory. He stayed quiet, his claws tapping slowly on the table. The council leader noticed his silence. "Admiral Torvak," said the High Commander, a being made of shifting light, "you've seen these humans. Tell us, are they worth this much conversation?" Torvak's eyes narrowed. "They are small," he said softly, "but so are the stars when seen from a distance. Do not mistake size for insignificance." Laughter erupted again, drowning his words. "Ah, he's grown poetic," jeered one delegate. "Perhaps the humans have infected his mind with their sentimentality." "I'm serious," Torvak growled, but they ignored him. The conversation continued, full of pride and scorn. Finally, a loud thud silenced the hall as one being rose, massive, armored, and radiating confidence. His name was Zurath, warlord of the Vral Collective, a species known for their brutal efficiency in war. He slammed his clawed hand on the crystal table, cracks spreading under his strength. "Enough talk," he boomed. "If these humans are truly as capable as some of you fear, let them prove it. I say we test them." The room quieted instantly. The High Commander turned his luminous head toward Zurath. "Test them?" "Yes," Zurath said with a grin that showed rows of razor teeth. "A controlled engagement. One of our armies against one of theirs. No orbital strikes, no weapons of mass destruction, just ground combat. Let us see what their so-called discipline is worth." The chamber murmured in agreement. "A fine idea," said the Cyrex general. "It will entertain the colonies and remind these humans of their place." "And if they refuse?" asked another. Zurath's grin widened. "Then they are cowards, and the galaxy will know it." The High Commander leaned back in his throne of light. "And where will this battle take place?" "A neutral world," Zurath replied. "Vaughn Prime. Barren, stable atmosphere, enough terrain for strategy. A perfect stage for humiliation." A ripple of laughter followed. But at the far end of the hall, Admiral Torvak's expression darkened. He knew what Zurath didn't, that the humans were not the type to be intimidated. They were the type to listen, learn, and return with answers no one wanted. Still, the council voted, and the proposal passed without resistance. A message was drafted immediately and transmitted across light years toward Earth's diplomatic command. It was simple, almost mocking in its wording. The Galactic War Council invites humanity to a demonstration of strength. Choose your best army. Meet us on Vaughn Prime. Show us what Earth calls discipline. When the message was sent, Zurath turned toward the others. "Let us see if they have the courage to step into real war." "They'll come," Torvak muttered under his breath. Zurath glanced at him. "You sound certain." "I've seen their eyes," Torvak said softly. "They are not like us." The warlord laughed. "No, Admiral. They are weaker. That's why they will lose." But even as the council celebrated, somewhere in the void between stars, the signal reached Earth Command. Deep beneath the surface of the planet, in a fortress built within the mountains of old Alaska, A small group of human officers sat in silence as they read the message. The holographic text hovered above the table, glowing faint blue. General Marcus Reeve, commander of Earth's unified army, leaned forward. His face was lined, his eyes sharp. "They challenge us to a demonstration," he said quietly. "They think this is a game." His second-in-command, Colonel Hayes, grinned. "It's not a challenge, sir. It's an insult." "Exactly," Reeve said. "And insults have consequences." Around him, the command officers waited for his decision. The air was heavy with anticipation. Finally, Reeve looked up, his voice calm. "We accept." No cheers. No shouting. Just the quiet sound of agreement as the officers stood and began preparations. Within hours, the message returned to the Galactic Council. "Humanity accepts your invitation. We will meet you on Vaughn Prime." Back in the chamber, Zuratha's grin faltered for a moment. "That was fast." "Too fast," Torvak murmured. The council leader raised a hand, summoning the room to order. "Then it is settled. Vaughn Prime. One human army against one Vral legion. The rest of the galaxy will watch." "And when they lose?" asked the Cyrex general. Zurath bared his teeth. "Then the humans will learn humility." The council adjourned, laughter echoing through the massive hall. But outside, far beyond the stars, humanity's armies began to move. On training fields that stretched for miles, soldiers assembled under gray skies. Their armor was dull, their weapons worn, their movements silent. There was no ceremony, no grand speech. Just quiet discipline. General Reeve stood on the command platform, watching thousands of soldiers move in perfect formation. Every step synchronized, every order followed without hesitation. "They'll underestimate us," said Colonel Hayes beside him. "Good," Reeve replied. "Let them." The next days were a storm of motion. Massive carriers loaded tanks, artillery, drones, and supplies. Drop ships descended and rose like clockwork. From orbit, the Earth looked calm, but every base, every hangar, every shipyard pulsed with activity. Across the planet, civilians watched the broadcasts with mixed emotions: fear, pride, and curiosity. No one had ever seen humanity stand alone against the entire galaxy before. "Do we tell them the odds?" asked Hayes quietly. "No," Reeve said. "We tell them the mission." "And what's that, sir?" Reeve looked out toward the stars. "To remind the galaxy what happens when you challenge those who never stop preparing." On Vaughn Prime, alien engineers prepared the battlefield. Observation drones hovered above, broadcasting live feeds across thousands of systems. Reporters from every species covered the historic event, calling it a test of strength. A moment of truth. Betting houses across the galaxy opened wagers on how long the humans would last. Some said an hour. Others said 10 minutes. Not a single bet favored Earth. The night before the battle, Zurath stood on a cliff overlooking his army. Thousands of armored warriors, their weapons glowing in the dark. "They think numbers will save them," he growled. "They think courage replaces power. Tomorrow, we remind them what real war looks like." His second-in-command, a smaller but sharp-eyed officer, hesitated. "Warlord, with respect, what if they are not as weak as we think?" Zurath laughed, his voice booming across the camp. "Then they'll die proving it." At the same time, on the other side of the planet, the human base was silent. There was no music, no shouting, no banners. Soldiers moved through the darkness, checking equipment, marking positions, and resting quietly beside armored vehicles. In the command tent, Reeve reviewed the map of Vaughn Prime. Every ridge, valley, and canyon was marked. "We're not here to show off," he said to his officers. "We're here to teach." "Teach what?" one young lieutenant asked. Reeve's eyes hardened. "That war isn't about glory. It's about survival." He turned to the window, watching the horizon. Far in the distance, the alien camps glowed with fire and arrogance. "They think we'll fight like them," he murmured. "They'll learn otherwise." Outside, a soft wind blew across the barren world, carrying dust and whispers. Among the alien observers, one voice, a small, forgotten scientist from a neutral world, spoke softly to herself as she watched the two camps from orbit. "You don't challenge the ones who train for war," she said. "Even when there is no war." Below her, under the twin moons of Vaughn Prime, two armies waited. One was loud, proud, and shining with confidence. The other was silent, steady, and unseen. And somewhere between the two, history waited to be written. Because tomorrow, for the first time, the galaxy would learn the truth of what it meant to challenge a human army. The red sun of Vaughn Prime rose slowly over the horizon, painting the barren plains in shades of blood and dust. Across the wasteland, the alien army of Warlord Zurath stretched for miles. Thousands of armored soldiers standing in formation beneath banners that shimmered with plasma fire. Their ships hovered in the sky like metallic beasts, engines growling as they cast long shadows over the sand. The noise was endless, drums pounding, horns echoing, soldiers roaring in anticipation of what they believed would be an easy victory. Cameras from every corner of the galaxy floated above, broadcasting the spectacle live to millions of watchers. The Council had called this event the Trial of Strength, but everyone knew it was meant as a humiliation, a public reminder that humanity's age of pride would end before it began. As the alien armies cheered, the sound of engines rose from the distance, low, steady, disciplined. Every head turned toward the western ridge. At first, they saw only a faint shimmer through the morning dust. Then the ground began to tremble. It wasn't thunder. It was rhythm. Marching rhythm. From behind the ridge, the first human dropships appeared, gray, unmarked, their engines whispering instead of roaring. They descended in perfect lines, touching down so softly that not even dust clouds lingered. Doors opened, and soldiers stepped out, not shouting, not running, just moving with purpose. Their armor wasn't shiny or decorated. It was dull, efficient, marked only by unit numbers and small flags. No banners, no colors, no display of ego. They looked like shadows walking into the light. The aliens stared in disbelief. "Where's their music?" one officer muttered. "Where's their roar?" Another sneered. "They're afraid. That's why they move so quietly." But the laughter didn't last long. The humans spread out with perfect precision, dividing into squads without a single spoken word. Each unit unpacked their equipment in synchronized motion, establishing lines, marking coordinates, scanning terrain. Every movement seemed rehearsed, because it was. For them, this wasn't a show. It was procedure. And procedure was sacred. The alien commanders watched from the observation deck, confusion growing. "They don't even talk," hissed a Cyrex tactician. "How do they coordinate?" "They're human," said Admiral Torvak quietly, standing beside him. "They don't need to shout. They already know what to do." Down below, General Marcus Reeves stood at the center of the human formation, his helmet under one arm as he looked across the desert toward the enemy camps. His face was calm, unreadable. "Status report," he said softly. "All units in position, sir," replied Colonel Hayes. "No visual on their scouts yet." "There won't be," Reeves said. "They're too busy watching us. Let them." Hayes smirked. "You think they'll realize?" Reeves' eyes didn't move. "Not until it's over." Across the plains, alien scouts flew low, scanning the human formation. Their sensors picked up no heavy artillery, no energy weapons, no mechs, just infantry, light vehicles, and old kinetic rifles. The report reached Zurath minutes later. He laughed so loudly that his officers flinched. "No shields? No plasma? They brought bullets to a war of stars." "They don't even have air superiority," one aide said. "Do we strike first?" "No," Zurath said with a grin. "Let them prepare. It will make their defeat all the more dramatic." His army cheered as he raised his claws toward the sky. "Today, we crush their arrogance beneath our boots." Cheers erupted through the camps. Reporters broadcast his speech live. The galaxy laughed with him. But in the human camp, there was no sound. No celebration. Only quiet movement. Drones lifted into the air. Silent, small, invisible to most scanners. They mapped the terrain, sending data to every soldier's visor. Every soldier already knew the plan, every one of them part of a greater rhythm that required no voice. It wasn't emotionless, it was pure focus. They didn't come for glory. They came to win. As the sun reached its peak, the alien army began to move. Massive hover tanks rolled across the plains, their cannons glowing. The air trembled with their advance. From orbit, the watching galaxy saw an unstoppable tide of light and power. Commentators predicted the humans would last 10 minutes. On the ground, Reeve simply raised his hand. His soldiers knelt in formation, silent as statues. Then, at his signal, they began to march. No shouting, no fanfare. Just steps, steady, measured, inhumanly synchronized. Even the cameras couldn't capture how perfect it looked. Dust rose behind them in straight, identical trails. The aliens watching grew uneasy. "Why do they move like that?" one whispered. "It's unnatural." "It's training," said Torvak quietly. "The kind of training that never ends." The human army advanced slowly until both sides were within range. The alien commanders expected fear, hesitation, or noise. Instead, the humans stopped, rifles steady, eyes locked forward. Reeve's voice echoed through the comms, low and calm. "Remember the rule," he said. "No wasted motion. No wasted shot." "Understood," his army replied as one, their voices merging into a single steady tone. On the opposite ridge, Zurath raised his claw. "Fire!" The sky exploded in light. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, turning the desert into rivers of molten glass. Dust clouds rose, blinding the cameras. The alien generals leaned forward eagerly, expecting destruction. But when the dust cleared, the humans were still there, kneeling behind temporary barriers, unshaken. Not one had moved out of formation. Then, without warning, the human counterfire began. There was no noise at first, only flashes of light, snipers taking precision shots, artillery striking exact coordinates. Each human bullet found its mark. Not random, not chaotic. Every hit calculated, every movement precise. The aliens watching from orbit fell silent. "They're not fighting back," one observer said slowly. "They're controlling the fight." On the ground, Zurath roared in fury. "They mock us. Charge!" His soldiers surged forward in a wall of fire and metal. The desert trembled as thousands of alien warriors stormed toward the human line. But as they approached, the humans didn't retreat. They didn't even flinch. "Phase 2, Reeve said calmly. Instantly, the front line shifted. Trenches opened. Mines detonated. The ground beneath the alien vanguard erupted, throwing soldiers and machines into the air. Before they could recover, drones dropped from the sky like silent predators, tagging enemy armor for long-range strikes. Every explosion was exact, no shot wasted. The alien soldiers screamed as their formation broke apart. Cameras caught it all, an army of thousands being dismantled by silence. "How?" shouted one alien commander. "They're guessing our moves." Torvak shook his head. "They're not guessing. They're reading you. Every pattern, every habit, you showed it to them." The alien army faltered, confusion spreading faster than fear. And yet, the humans never smiled, never shouted, never celebrated. They just kept moving, silent as death. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw what discipline looked like, not rage, not chaos, but perfect control. Zurath watched from his command tower, disbelief twisting his face. "No one fights like this," he whispered. "No one." And far across the battlefield, General Reeve stood calm under the crimson sky, eyes fixed on the advancing storm. "They wanted to see what a professional army looks like," he murmured. "Let's show them." And as his soldiers advanced again in perfect rhythm, the galaxy learned the first rule of human warfare. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you've already lost, and just haven't realized it yet. The battlefield of Vaughn Prime stretched endlessly beneath the twin suns, scarred by the early exchange of fire. Smoke drifted through the sky like wounded ghosts, and the stench of melted sand and scorched metal filled the air. Yet amid the chaos, the human army stood in perfect formation, silent and unmoved. Across the desert, the alien legions of warlord Zurath regrouped, their ranks shaken but not yet broken. Between the two armies, a narrow valley of dust and shadow waited, empty, silent, the place where pride would soon be buried. As dawn broke again on the second day, a sudden message echoed across both camps. A request. The humans had asked for a meeting. The alien commanders laughed at the absurdity. "They want to negotiate already," one sneered. But curiosity forced them to agree. A neutral zone was established between the lines, a space marked by nothing but wind and sand. When the moment came, the alien warlord arrived first, his massive frame gleaming in the dull sunlight, surrounded by his guards. He was power made flesh, his armor etched with the trophies of 1,000 battles. He expected a parade of weakness, a plea for mercy. Instead, he found calm. From the human side, General Marcus Reeve walked alone. No armor, no weapon, no guards. Just his uniform, simple and clean. Every step he took was measured, unhurried, as if he were walking to a briefing rather than a battlefield. The silence between them was heavy. Zurath's eyes glowed with contempt. "So, the brave human general comes to surrender," he said, his voice like thunder rolling over the dunes. Reeve stopped a few paces away, meeting his gaze without fear. "No," he said calmly. "I came to discuss the rules." Zurath frowned, his amusement faltering. "Rules?" "Yes," Reeve replied. "Rules of engagement. The protection of medics, the evacuation of wounded, the respect of surrender flags. No orbital strikes. No weapons of extinction." The alien warlord stared at him for a long moment, then burst into laughter so loud the ground seemed to shake. His soldiers joined in, their mocking echoes filling the valley. "Rules?" Zurath repeated between laughs. "You speak of rules in war? There are no rules. Only victory and death." Reeve didn't react. His voice stayed even. "That's the difference between us." The laughter died slowly. Zurath tilted his head, curious despite himself. "You think order matters when the ground burns beneath you?" "Yes," Reeve said. "Because order is what keeps us human. We don't fight for chaos. We fight for peace. And peace demands restraint." Zurath smirked. "Peace? You come to a war zone and speak of peace." Reeve's eyes were steady. "Because we understand what it costs." The alien warlord stepped closer, his shadow falling across the human's face. "Do you think honor will save you? That rules will protect your soldiers when my cannons turn this valley to ash." Reeve didn't flinch. "Honor won't save us," he said quietly, "but it will outlive you." The alien blinked, the words cutting deeper than he expected. "You think you can win this?" "Winning isn't the point," Reeve replied. "Teaching is." "Teaching?" Zurath snarled. "You insult me." "No," Reeve said softly. "I warn you." The air between them turned cold. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. For a moment, Zurath felt something he hadn't in years, unease. The human's calm wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. The kind of certainty that came only from experience paid for in blood. Zurath straightened, breaking the tension. "You have one day," he said. "When the suns rise again, I will crush your army. Then we'll see how your rules hold up." He turned and stormed back toward his lines, his laughter echoing through the valley. Reeve watched him go, expression unchanged. When he returned to his command tent, Colonel Hayes was waiting. "How'd it go, sir?" he asked. Reeve removed his gloves slowly, setting them on the table. "Exactly as expected. He thinks rules are weakness." Hayes smirked. "Then he's never fought a human." "No," Reeve said quietly, looking down at the map of the battlefield. "But he's about to." Night fell. The alien camp was alive with noise and confidence. Music, shouting, the sounds of warriors who believed victory was already theirs. The human camp, however, was silent. Soldiers cleaned weapons, checked systems, and studied their maps. No one spoke louder than necessary. Every motion was methodical, disciplined, almost sacred. They weren't preparing for glory, they were preparing for survival. In the distance, alien scouts watched and reported. "They are too calm," one said uneasily. "No songs, no fear, just work." His superior laughed. "Let them work. It won't save them." But even he could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next morning, the battlefield was still. The alien army assembled, banners fluttering, armor gleaming in the sun. Across the valley, the humans stood ready, silent ranks of soldiers in gray armor, rifles pointed downward, eyes forward. The wind carried no shouts, no taunts, no drums. Only the sound of quiet breathing. Zurath rode to the front of his army, raising his clawed hand high. "Today," he roared, "the galaxy will see who truly commands war." His soldiers roared back, their voices shaking the sand. On the human side, Reeve raised a single hand. "Phase 1, he said calmly. The first human units began to move, not in haste, not in fear, but in rhythm. They spread like a living wave, positioning, adjusting, preparing. Zurath narrowed his eyes. "What are they doing?" "Waiting," said Admiral Torvak from the Council observation deck far above, his voice grim. "That's what humans do best. They wait until you make the first mistake." Zurath grinned viciously. "Then I'll give them one to choke on." He dropped his hand, and the alien army surged forward, weapons blazing. The sky turned to fire again, the ground trembling beneath their march. But this time, the humans didn't kneel. They advanced. Slow, steady, precise. Their weapons spoke in measured rhythm, every shot striking true. No chaos, no panic, just control. Watching from orbit, commentators fell silent as the human army moved like a single machine. "This isn't war," one whispered. "It's choreography." The aliens pushed harder, their confidence turning to confusion as every maneuver met perfect counterfire. Zurath screamed orders, his voice breaking. "Push through. They can't hold forever." But they didn't need to. They weren't holding, they were directing. Every alien step took them exactly where Reeve wanted them to go. "Activate Phase 2, he ordered quietly. Mines detonated across the ridge. Hidden drones rose from the dust, tagging alien armor for precision strikes. In minutes, the ground became a trap. The aliens' charge collapsed in on itself, confusion spreading faster than fire. And through it all, the humans kept moving, methodical, focused, unstoppable. In the observation deck, Admiral Torvak whispered, "Now they'll understand." "Understand what?" asked the High Commander beside him. Torvak's voice was barely audible. "That war isn't chaos for them. It's art." And down below, in the smoke and fury of Vaughn Prime, the galaxy witnessed the first true display of human professionalism. There were no screams from their side, no wasted movements, no glory cries. Only silence, precision, and the cold discipline of a species that had been training for war long before the galaxy even knew its name. The war had truly begun. Vaughn Prime skies were painted in fire and smoke, the ground trembling under the roar of alien cannons and the steady march of humanity's army. The air burned with plasma and dust, but even in the chaos, the humans moved with perfect rhythm. It wasn't the chaos of desperate soldiers. It was the order of a practiced orchestra, every sound deliberate, every strike synchronized. The alien legions were vast, larger than anything Earth had ever faced before, but that didn't matter. What mattered was control. And humanity had mastered control like no other. The alien warlord Zurath watched from his command tower, his claws digging into the railing as his troops unleashed a storm of plasma fire that lit up the desert. The ground itself seemed to melt under the force of his army's weapons. "No creature can survive that," one of his officers hissed, his voice full of arrogance. "They'll be dust before sunrise." But Zurath didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on the horizon where the human line had stood. For a moment, it was all flame and smoke, and then, as the light faded, the shapes of soldiers began to appear through the haze. Still in formation. Still marching. The aliens fell silent. Impossible, whispered one of them. The humans advanced through fire as if the world itself bowed to their pace. Their armor was scorched, their boots sinking into molten sand, yet they didn't falter. They didn't even slow down. For every step they took, the alien army took a step back without realizing it. From the human command vehicle, General Marcus Reeve watched through the drone feeds. His voice, calm and steady, cut through the chaos like a blade. Unit Bravo, shift 20 meters west. Maintain line integrity. Do not break formation. Precision over speed. Yes, sir, came the immediate reply, no hesitation, no fear. The humans adjusted their formation like a living machine. Every soldier knew their role, every movement pre-calculated. Reeve didn't need to shout. He didn't need to command like the alien generals who screamed in rage and panic. He simply spoke, and thousands obeyed without question. To the alien observers watching from orbit, it was terrifying. The human army wasn't just fighting, they were performing. A symphony of precision and patience. Their drones moved with surgical efficiency, striking only what mattered, saving every round, wasting nothing. Their artillery fired in short, rhythmic bursts, each one timed to the second. When one weapon fell silent, another took its place without pause, keeping the pressure constant. How are they doing this? An alien commander demanded from his control center. They have no psychic link, no hive mind. Admiral Torvak, who had warned the council before, simply folded his claws. They don't need one, he said. Their discipline is the link. On the battlefield, an alien tank battalion surged forward, its cannons spinning and ready to annihilate the front line. But before they could fire, small flashes appeared across the horizon, human spotters marking targets with invisible lasers. 10 seconds later, the tanks vanished under coordinated artillery fire. Each hit landed precisely where it needed to. Not one round missed. It was the sound of perfection. The aliens began to panic. Their lines broke. Their weapons overheated. Commanders screamed conflicting orders. Zuratha's fury grew with every report. Why are they still advancing? He bellowed. We have them outnumbered 50-1. His chief tactician stammered. They're not fighting like any species we know. They don't retreat. They don't panic. It's like they already know how this ends. Then end it. Zurath roared. He ordered an aerial strike, hundreds of fighters diving from the clouds, plasma beams scorching the sky. But the humans were ready. Anti-air units emerged from the dunes, their weapons already locked. They didn't fire wildly, they waited. And when the enemy formation entered range, they struck once, clean and decisive. Every human missile found a target. The sky became a graveyard of burning ships. On the ground, the soldiers didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They simply adjusted their visors and kept moving. Their breathing was steady, their hearts in sync, their focus unbroken. It wasn't pride that drove them, it was purpose. Zurath slammed his fist on the control table. No army can fight without emotion, he shouted. They're not alive, they're machines. No, said Admiral Torvak quietly from the observation deck, watching the human advance with awe. They're something worse. They are professionals. The phrase spread through the council observers like wildfire. Professionals, whispered one alien diplomat, her voice trembling. That's what they call this. Yes, Torvak said. To them, war isn't rage. It's craft. They practice it like you practice breathing. On the surface, Reeve issued another quiet command. Phase 3. Secure the ridge. Target command vehicles only. No unnecessary fire. The humans moved again, smooth as a tide. Sniper fire lanced through the chaos, striking alien officers one by one. Their chain of command dissolved in minutes. The alien soldiers, leaderless and afraid, began to fall back. Reeve watched calmly as his troops advanced. Maintain formation, he said. No chasing. Let them retreat. Hayes turned to him. We can finish them, sir. Not yet, Reeve replied. They haven't learned the lesson. In the distance, Zuratha's fury reached its breaking point. "They mock us," he roared. "They treat war as a game." He activated his personal dropship, descending straight into the battlefield. He would lead the charge himself. When he landed, his soldiers rallied, shouting his name. The ground shook as he drew his plasma blade, its light cutting through the smoke. "Face me, human," he bellowed. "Let's see if your silence can scream." From the dust ahead, a single human stepped forward, Captain Hale, leader of Reeves' 2nd Battalion. His armor was cracked, his face streaked with ash. He raised his rifle slowly and said nothing. "You refuse to speak." Zurath taunted. Hale's reply was calm. "We don't waste words on arrogance." Then he fired once. The plasma blade flickered, deflected by a shield, but the force of the shot staggered the warlord. Hale advanced step by step, every motion deliberate. Around them, the battle fell silent. Every alien and human soldier watched as the two commanders faced off. Zurath swung his blade in fury, but Hale sidestepped, grabbing the warlord's arm and slamming him into the ground with brutal efficiency. No wasted movement, no flourish. Just precision. Zurath roared and slashed again, but Hale blocked it with the butt of his rifle, breaking the blade in half. "How?" Zurath gasped. "You're not stronger than me." Hale looked down at him. "I don't need to be. I'm trained to make no mistakes. You made plenty." Before Zurath could move again, Hale aimed his weapon and fired, not to kill, but to send him sprawling unconscious in the dirt. The warlord's army froze in disbelief. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, the human soldiers resumed formation, their lines straight, their movements steady. No one cheered. No one spoke. The battle wasn't over, but the lesson was already written in blood and dust. From the command deck above, Reeve watched quietly, his eyes hard. "Mark the ridge as secured," he said, "and prepare for Phase 4. The galaxy's watching. Let's make sure they never forget what they just saw." And far beyond the desert, across billions of screens in countless worlds, silence spread like a shadow as the galaxy witnessed the impossible. The sound of precision, the quiet wrath of humanity, and the unspoken truth that no one would ever dare challenge again. The sun of Vaughn Prime burned low in the sky, painting the desert battlefield in gold and fire as the war entered its most brutal hour. The alien army of Zurath had fallen into chaos, their formations scattered, their discipline shattered, but still they fought, unwilling to accept defeat from a species they once mocked as primitive. The ground was littered with the remains of burning tanks and shattered plasma rifles, smoke rising like ghosts of arrogance. Yet through all of it, the human army moved as if time itself bowed to their rhythm. Their boots struck the dirt in unison, every motion controlled, every breath synchronized. They didn't shout. They didn't rage. They simply obeyed. To the aliens watching from orbit, it was terrifying to witness a species fight without hatred. The Galactic Council chambers were filled with silence as screens displayed the battle. Delegates who once laughed at humanity now leaned forward in awe. "They fight like they've done this for thousands of years," whispered one. Admiral Torvak nodded slowly. "They have." On the ground, General Marcus Reeve stood on a rise overlooking the field, his visor reflecting the distant fires. Around him, commanders awaited orders, but he didn't need to speak. A single hand gesture sent entire divisions moving. When one line fell, another stepped forward, seamlessly filling the gap. When supplies ran low, dropships descended through the smoke, landing between explosions without breaking formation. It was not chaos, it was choreography. And that discipline was the human army's heart. In the enemy camp, panic spread as Zuratha's officers screamed contradictory orders. "Hold the left flank. Retreat to the ridge. Protect the command post." The noise was endless, confusion feeding on itself until even their bravest soldiers hesitated. One alien captain, trembling under pressure, turned to his commander and shouted, "They don't stop. They move like machines." But his commander shook his head in disbelief. "No. Machines don't adapt like that. They're alive." At that moment, the human front line split in two, folding like a door to reveal a second wave, specialized strike units that surged forward with absolute precision. Their visors glowed faintly, their weapons already locked onto targets. They didn't aim wildly. Every shot was a statement, every move part of something larger. A sniper's round took out a communications relay at the same instant a drone strike neutralized the alien artillery. The two actions, separated by miles, occurred in perfect timing, as if guided by one mind. "They can't be improvising," muttered an alien general watching the feed. "No army fights with this level of coordination. It's impossible." Torvak exhaled through his mandibles. "It's discipline," he said softly. "You can't simulate it. You can't fake it. You can only live it." On the battlefield, Reeves' voice came through the comms, quiet and calm. No emotion. No mercy. Precision first, survival second. The soldiers answered as one, "Understood, sir." There was no pride, no anger, just unity. That unity rippled through the field like a wave. When one soldier fell, another stepped over them and carried the line forward. Medics worked in silence, dragging the wounded without breaking formation. Every man and woman knew their place in the rhythm of battle. They didn't need courage. They were courage. The aliens, desperate to regain momentum, launched their elite shock troops, massive beasts in reinforced armor, genetically engineered for destruction. They charged with a roar that shook the sky, plasma blades glowing blue in the smoke. The human soldiers didn't move. They waited, perfectly still. When the beasts were meters away, the front line dropped to one knee and fired in unison. The roar of their rifles was deafening, a single sound of perfect timing. The beasts fell in waves, and those who survived were met with hand-to-hand combat so swift it looked unreal. The humans didn't fight with fury. They fought with control, their movements clean, efficient, final. No wasted strikes, no hesitation. A single human sergeant took down 3 towering aliens with nothing but a knife and precision. When asked later how he did it, he simply said, "They were loud. I listened." Back at the alien command post, Zurath watched in horror as his elite units were dismantled in minutes. His pride twisted into rage. "How can they be so calm?" he shouted, slamming his claws against the console. "They're dying too, and they don't even scream." His aide hesitated. "Maybe they don't fear death." "Everyone fears death," Zurath roared. But his voice faltered. Because deep inside, he realized something terrible. These humans didn't fight to live. They fought to complete the mission. That was their strength, and their curse. The longer the battle continued, the clearer it became that humanity's real weapon wasn't technology, wasn't numbers, wasn't even their general. It was discipline, an invisible force that held them together when any other army would have broken apart. The aliens fired wildly now, their lines collapsing under their own panic. The humans advanced one last time, step by step, until their boots echoed through the ruins of what once was an alien stronghold. The air was thick with smoke and silence. Reeve looked across the field through his visor. "All units, hold position," he said. "No pursuit. Let them surrender." "Sir," Hay said quietly, "we can finish them." Reeve shook his head. "We already did." In orbit, Admiral Torvak stood before the council, his voice low and heavy. "You wanted to test the humans," he said. "Now you've seen the result. They don't fight for glory or hate. They fight for structure, for order, for something larger than life itself." One alien delegate swallowed hard. "So, they are unbeatable." Torvak looked at the burning world below. "Not unbeatable," he said. "But if you want to defeat them, you'd have to become them. And that's something no one else in this galaxy can do." Back on Vaughn Prime, the human army stood silently over the battlefield, smoke rising around them like mist. Not one soldier cheered, not one celebrated. They simply stood in silence, the heart of discipline beating as strong as ever. And across the galaxy, trillions watched in quiet awe, finally understanding why humanity never needed rage to conquer. Because rage burns out. Discipline endures forever. The desert of Vaughn Prime had changed. What began as a battlefield now looked like the aftermath of a storm that had torn through pride itself. The ground was blackened, the air thick with dust, and the bodies of alien machines lay half-buried in molten sand. The alien banners that once shimmered proudly now hung torn and lifeless in the wind. Above the smoking horizon, the human fleet hovered in silence, cold gray ships casting their shadows like warnings across the planet. Inside the alien command tower, chaos had turned to panic. Zurath, once the embodiment of power and arrogance, paced the room like a trapped beast. His officers shouted at flickering screens, their reports meaningless. Our flank is gone. The southern ridge has fallen. The humans have cut off our supply lines, one cried. Then reinforce it. Zurath roared, slamming his claws on the table, but deep down, he knew there were no reinforcements left. His army was collapsing faster than he could command. The more he ordered, the more confusion spread. Meanwhile, outside, the human army didn't even accelerate their victory. They advanced slowly, precisely, as if they were teaching rather than fighting. General Reeve stood near the edge of the battlefield, calm as always, his voice steady through the comms. Maintain grid formation. Target only hostile command vehicles. No unnecessary fire. Sir, they're falling apart, Hayes said beside him. We could end it in minutes. No, Reeve said quietly. Let them see what happens when pride meets discipline. On the alien side, a captain turned toward his general, panic in his voice. Warlord, they're not even chasing us. They're letting us run. Zuratha's claws curled into fists. They mock us. They mock me, he screamed. But his words were drowned out by the sound of distant thunder. It wasn't plasma fire this time. It was the slow, steady rhythm of human artillery. Not random barrages, but perfectly timed strikes. Each shot fell where it mattered most, cutting off retreat paths, isolating strongholds, breaking morale. It wasn't destruction for glory, it was control through precision. The alien soldiers began to break ranks completely. Some threw down weapons, others fled into the dunes, disappearing like shadows swallowed by the earth. From orbit, the Galactic Council's broadcast continued, showing the humiliation in real time. Billions watched the mighty warlord's army disintegrate before the eyes of the galaxy. Commentators, once mocking, now whispered in disbelief. How can such a small force control an entire army without emotion? This isn't war, another said softly. It's discipline turned into art. In the observation chamber above, Admiral Torvak stood silent, his mandibles tight. A fellow council member whispered beside him, "This cannot be real." Torvak's voice was cold. "It's real. It's humanity." Back on the surface, Zurath stormed out of his tower, stepping into the burning wind. His eyes glowed with fury as he saw his remaining soldiers retreating, their courage broken. He shouted until his throat cracked, but no one listened. The sound of his voice was drowned out by the low, steady hum of approaching dropships. Then he saw them, hundreds of human soldiers moving in formation, silent, unhurried, unstoppable. They walked through smoke and fire like it was nothing, their visors reflecting the dying sun. Zurath grabbed his weapon, his claws shaking. "You think this is victory?" he shouted toward them, his voice echoing across the dunes. "You think silence is strength? You are emotionless machines." The line of humans stopped, every rifle lowering in unison. Then Reeve's voice came through the external speaker, calm but heavy. "No, Warlord," he said. "We just don't need noise to win." The alien warlord roared and charged forward in blind rage, swinging his plasma weapon, his armor glowing red from heat. But before he reached them, one human stepped out from the line, a young sergeant with calm eyes. He raised his rifle and fired once. The warlord's weapon exploded in his hand, sending him sprawling to the ground. He lay there, gasping, staring at the human who had disarmed him with a single shot. You don't fight fair," he hissed. The soldier lowered his weapon. "War isn't about fair," he said softly. "It's about ending it." Zuratha's strength drained away, his pride bleeding out into the sand. He looked around at his fallen army, at the silent human formation that didn't even bother to celebrate. There were no shouts of victory, no waving of flags, no chants of glory. Just quiet efficiency. They weren't there for revenge. They were there for resolution. As the last of his troops surrendered, Zurath felt something he had never felt before. Not anger, not even fear, but humiliation. His entire existence as a warlord had been built on dominance and spectacle. Yet he had been undone by quietness. Reeves' voice echoed once more over the comms. Secure the prisoners. Treat the wounded. Both sides. No cruelty. No trophies. End this properly. His soldiers obeyed instantly. Medics moved across the field, helping even the enemy without hesitation. The cameras caught it all. Humans tending to the same soldiers who had tried to destroy them hours before. The galaxy watched, confused. One alien diplomat whispered, "Why are they helping them?" Torvak answered, his tone grave. Because that's the difference. To them, victory isn't destruction. It's control, with mercy. On the ground, Zurath was lifted by two human medics. His vision blurred, his pride shattered. He looked at Reeve, who stood before him, expression calm. "You could have killed us all," Zurath said weakly. Reeve's voice was quiet. "We could have. But what would that teach you?" Zurath's breath caught. "Teach us." Reeve nodded. "We don't fight to prove we can. We fight to remind those who forget why peace matters." The alien's eyes filled with something he had long forgotten. Respect. As the medics carried him away, the human army stood still under the red sky, silent as the world around them burned. The fall of pride was complete. And from that day on, across 1,000 worlds, no one ever dared to laugh at the human army again. Because the galaxy had learned that the quietest step can shake the loudest empire, and the calmest soldier can break the proudest warlord without saying a word. The twin suns of Vaughn Prime sank low over the horizon, painting the battlefield in shades of red and ash. The smoke that had once choked the air now drifted slowly, rising toward a quiet sky. The noise of war had died, replaced by the faint sound of wind sweeping across the endless dunes. What was once chaos was now stillness. The human army stood in formation, rifles lowered, visors dimmed. No one spoke. No one moved. The war was over. Across the field, the broken remnants of Zurath's army lay scattered like fallen statues. Thousands of soldiers stripped of their pride, their weapons abandoned in the sand. The mighty banners of conquest that once flew high now hung limp, half buried in dust. From the command ridge, General Marcus Reeve watched silently, his eyes reflecting the glow of the setting suns. "Status?" he asked quietly. Colonel Hayes approached, his voice calm. "Enemy forces have surrendered, sir. They've dropped all weapons. No signs of resistance." "Casualties?" Reeve asked. "Minimal on our side," Hayes said. "Severe on theirs. Medics are already assisting both." Reeve nodded. "Make sure they're treated the same as ours. No exceptions." Hayes blinked, surprised. "Sir, after what they did?" Reeve cut him off gently. "We don't fight with hate, Colonel. We fight with purpose." Hayes lowered his head. "Yes, sir." He turned and relayed the order, and within minutes, human medics crossed the battlefield. The sight was shocking even to the alien survivors. Soldiers who had once been enemies now received water, food, and bandages from the very humans they tried to kill. The galaxy watched in stunned silence through countless live feeds, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. To them, war always ended with vengeance, with humiliation, with victory parades and corpses left as warnings. But the humans did none of that. They simply ended the war the way they fought it, with discipline. One alien general, his arm in a sling, stared at a human medic who carefully dressed his wound. "Why help me?" he asked bitterly. "You should hate me." The medic looked up through his visor, voice soft but steady. "If I hate you, I become what you were." The alien said nothing after that. In the distance, a group of human soldiers approached the fallen warlord Zurath, who lay beneath a shattered banner, half buried in sand. His once golden armor was cracked and burned, his claws dull and trembling. When he saw the humans coming, he expected death. Instead, they stopped a few feet away, their weapons holstered. One soldier extended a hand. "Come on," he said quietly. "It's over." Zurath stared at the hand in disbelief, then at the faces behind the helmets. Calm. Unshaken. Not gloating, not mocking. Just calm. Slowly, he reached out, his massive claw closing around the soldier's wrist. They pulled him to his feet. As they led him across the field toward the human command post, alien eyes followed in silence. They had never seen mercy like this. Never. When Zurath reached Reeves' tent, he was barely standing. His pride had long since fallen, but some part of his spirit still burned with the question that haunted him. Reeves stood before him, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "You came to end us," Reeves said. "You wanted the galaxy to watch humanity break." Zurath nodded weakly. "I did." "And what did you learn?" Reeves asked. The warlord lifted his head slowly, his eyes hollow but clear. "That you don't fight for victory," he said. "You fight for something I can't understand." Reeves studied him for a long moment, then replied quietly, "We fight so we never have to again." The warlord exhaled, a heavy sound full of exhaustion and realization. "You could have killed me," he said. "All of us." Reeves' voice remained calm. "We could have. But victory means nothing if it costs our humanity." For the first time in his life, Zurath bowed, not out of fear, but out of respect. "Then you are not warriors," he said softly. "You are something greater." Reeves looked at him and said, "No, we're soldiers. And that's enough." Outside, the human flag was not raised, no anthem was played, and no cheers filled the air. Instead, the soldiers began to pack their equipment, clean their weapons, and mark the fallen, both human and alien, with quiet precision. They didn't celebrate. They didn't boast. They simply did their duty. On the Galactic Council homeworld, the live broadcast ended in silence. No one spoke for several minutes. Finally, one elder delegate whispered, "So, this is what professionalism looks like." Torvak, standing in the shadows, nodded slowly. "No," he said. "This is what humanity looks like." Across the galaxy, news feeds replayed the final moments again and again. The humans standing in silence as their enemies surrendered. The calm faces of soldiers who showed no hate, no pride, just discipline. Children on distant worlds watched the footage and whispered stories of the silent army. Soldiers in alien militaries studied the battle, trying to understand how an army so small could control a war so vast. But none could replicate it. Because what humanity carried wasn't something you could copy, it was something you became. Back on Vaughn Prime, as night fell and the stars returned, Reeves stood alone at the edge of the field, watching his soldiers work. Hayes approached quietly. "The council's broadcasting your victory speech live in an hour," he said. "What should I tell them?" Reeves didn't turn around. "Tell them there will be no speech. Tell them the war is over, and we're going home." Hayes nodded, then smiled faintly. "You think they'll understand?" Reeves' eyes stayed fixed on the horizon. "They don't need to," he said. "They just need to remember." The camera feed zoomed out one last time, capturing the endless field of soldiers standing beneath the twin moons. Silent, calm, unbroken. It was the image that would echo across the stars for centuries. The day the galaxy surrendered, not just their pride, but their belief that humanity was ordinary. Because on that day, they learned the truth. You don't challenge a human army. You survive it. If they let you, the war on Vaughn Prime ended, but its echo never did. Long after the smoke cleared and the ships left orbit, the story of that battle spread like fire across the stars. It traveled through whispers in spaceports, through broadcasts on alien news networks, through silent messages between soldiers who couldn't sleep at night. The galaxy had seen many wars before, but nothing like this, nothing so quiet, so precise, so terrifying in its calm. The footage of the human army moving in perfect rhythm, of their soldiers tending to both their own and their enemies after victory, became the most replayed moment in galactic history. Every alien who watched it felt the same chill. The same realization that this species they once called barbaric had just rewritten the very meaning of war. On the Council homeworld, delegates gathered in the Hall of Concord, the same room where months earlier they had laughed at humanity's small fleet and mocked their lack of advanced weapons. Now, that laughter was gone. The hall was silent, filled only with the hum of holoscreens replaying the battle again and again. The image of General Reeve standing on the scorched plains of Vaughn Prime had become a symbol of order, of control, of something no alien language had a word for. Finally, Admiral Torvak broke the silence. "We have always measured strength by power," he said slowly. "By how loud a cannon roars, or how many ships fill the sky. But humanity has shown us another kind of power, the power of stillness." One delegate shifted uncomfortably. "Stillness?" Torvak nodded. "Yes. They don't fight for chaos. They fight with purpose. They fight with discipline. And that discipline is impossible to defeat." The words spread across the chamber like electricity. No one argued. No one dared. In the weeks that followed, alien academies began studying human battle doctrine. They watched the footage of Vaughn Prime frame by frame, analyzing every formation, every maneuver. They discovered that nothing was random. Every step had meaning. Every pause was intentional. It was as if the entire battle had been choreographed years before it even began. And yet, no alien army could replicate it. They tried to copy the movements, the silence, the coordination, but something was always missing. What the humans had wasn't training, it was instinct. The instinct to endure, to adapt, to unify under pressure instead of breaking apart. The instinct born from 1,000 years of conflict and survival on the most dangerous world in the known galaxy, Earth. On that blue planet, life itself had taught them that chaos was constant, that only discipline could survive it. That lesson had carried them across the stars. Back on Earth, the soldiers who fought on Vaughn Prime returned quietly. There were no parades, no cheering crowds, no speeches. They simply went home, their uniforms still stained with the dust of another world. Some returned to families, others to silence. But all of them carried the same calm understanding, that they hadn't just won a war. They had changed how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. In one small school on a human colony world, a teacher showed her students the footage of the battle. As the children watched, one of them, no older than 10, raised his hand and asked, "Why didn't they cheer when they won?" The teacher smiled softly. "Because victory isn't about making noise," she said. "It's about making history." The galaxy agreed. Alien historians began referring to the event as the Day of Stillness. Soldiers from hundreds of worlds whispered about the Grey Army that never shouted, never ran, never failed. And in secret meetings, alien leaders rewrote their military strategies, not to defeat humanity, but to avoid provoking them ever again. Fear wasn't the right word for what they felt. It was something deeper. Respect. Reverence. Even awe. On Vaughn Prime, the battlefield was turned into a memorial site. No statues were built, no flags raised. Only a single metal plaque placed at the center of the desert where Reeve once stood. It bore no grand speech, no declaration of victory, just 5 words, etched in both human and alien script. Silence is not surrender. Discipline is destiny. When General Reeve visited years later, he stood before that plaque in his aging uniform, wind brushing against his face. He placed a hand on the cold metal and closed his eyes. "They understand now," he said quietly to himself. Finally. Behind him, young officers from multiple species stood at attention, not out of obligation, but out of respect. For in the decades that followed, humanity had become not the rulers of the galaxy, but its example. Their armies were feared not for their weapons, but for their unity. Their silence had become a legend told around every campfire, in every academy, in every council hall. And when alien cadets asked their instructors what humanity's greatest secret weapon was, the answer was always the same. It's not their guns. It's not their ships. It's their mind. The story ends with a scene aboard a quiet human cruiser drifting through space, Earth's blue glow shining in the distance. General Reeve stood on the bridge beside a young lieutenant. Do you think they'll ever challenge us again, sir? The lieutenant asked. Reeves smiled faintly. Maybe, he said, but they'll think twice before doing it loud. Outside, the stars shimmered, reflecting on the hull like silent applause. The galaxy would remember this day, not for the destruction, not for the fire, but for the moment they learned that humanity's greatest weapon was discipline itself. The day every alien learned why you never, ever challenge a human army.